All of it was on the slide.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's great to see everybody. Welcome to another OIA Islamic Academy Senior Thesis presentation. This year's theme is Unity in Faith, Family, and Community, Exploring the American Muslim Family. As many of you know, over the last few years, and obviously longer than that as well, there has been many discussions about what it means to have a family, what a family is. And because of the various different ideas that are out there, competing out there, one of the things that we felt as part of the education of OIA Islamic Academy students who are graduating is to understand what is the Islamic concept about the family and parenting. You're going to hear from our largest senior class this year. We started off with 2 a long time ago, and now we have 13 students, mashallah, all going on to amazing places, going to do amazing things. And one of the things that we really wanted the students to explore and understand is that there's no diametrically opposed views about so-called Western parenting or family and Islamic. There's so much that coincides in the middle and is similar. But of course, we also have our own unique and specific ideas of what the family looks like, about what education of the family looks like, what parenting looks like. For those of you who are interested, there was a great publication for free from Yaqeen Institute about parenting in the family. And one of the most interesting things that came about was that over this longitudinal study, they found that parenting style determined young people's view of God or Allah. And so they had a continuum of domineering parenting with no freedom, which caused many people to view God as a cosmic cop, which was the wording that they used. And then there were 3 other modes of parenting and family. One of the other things that Yaqeen Institute has discussed is the Pew Research that came out in 2019 and 2021 that discussed or showed that the highest number and percentage ever of Muslims feel that faith has no part in their life, especially in the category of 15 to 24-year-olds, which our students here belong in. And one of the key aspects of continuing this faith, of continuing the communities that we built, is through parenting and how we raise children. So with that said, this is the impetus and this is the raison d'etre, as they say, for why we chose this specific topic. And you're going to hear from the students and the presenters today. So I hope you enjoy it. I know you're going to have a lot of tough questions for them. They're anticipating all of them, researching all the possible questions in whatever form that they're using to research all those possible questions. And so I think we're ready for our first group. And the first group today is, yes,
Good parenting.
Good parenting. And who's the advisor for this group?
No, Teacher Julie.
Teacher Julie. I'm going to let Teacher Julie come up and introduce this group.
Thank you, Teacher Julie. It's a pleasure to introduce our first cohort. They have been working on this project for the past couple of months. And it is about Islamic good parenting. What is it and why it's important. So it's a pleasure to welcome them and introduce them, Aisha and Tariq and Omar.
Students did lots of research, especially learning Quran verses, applying that and Hadith as well, and they did a survey, a very good survey. We should teach that in high school and make our students ready for their real life, next life, inshallah. So, good luck, guys.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Aisha Mustafij.
My name is Fatih Fawdi.
My name is Omar Kadi.
And our advisors are teacher Julie Brown and teacher Dalia Al-Gamal. And today our topic is going to be Islamic good parenting, or التربية الإسلامية الصحيحة, and what it is and why it is important. Any parent can agree that parenting is an experience like no other. The task can be challenging and push any parent to their limits. Thankfully, there are many Islamic guidelines on how to raise and nurture healthy children. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said,
دع ابنك يلعب 7 سنين ويؤدب 7 سنين وصحبه 7 سنين ثم اتركه حبلك على غربه.
which means play with them for the first 7 years of their life, then teach them for the next 7 years of their life, then advise them for the next 7 years of their life, and after that. This hadith of the Prophet provides guidance to divide up the upbringing of a child into 3 stages. During the first stage, which is the first 7 years of the child's life, it is recommended to play with the child. Encourage them, indulge them in their imagination and creativity, and couple discipline with care and affection. Remember that these are formative years when a child is constantly being influenced by their surroundings and learns by observing. The second stage of upbringing is ages 7 to 14. This is the time to teach them secular and religious knowledge, for example, halal versus haram, and all the jurisprudence and Islamic behaviors crucial to nurturing a good Muslim child. The book, The Scientist in the Crib, What Early Learning Tells Us About the Mind, by Alison Gottlieb, basically talks about how children are like sponges. They absorb everything around them, telling us that these childhood years are years of learning and growth. Teaching them these important tasks now will benefit them further later on in life. The final and third stage of child development is the teenage years, or ages 14 to 21. Once a child reaches 14 years of age, or puberty, they achieve independence and start to develop their own personalities. At this stage, children are going into their own. The best thing that a parent can do is to advise them. The book, Help for Parents, How to Build a Great Relationship with Your Teenager, by Joyce Pabal, has a topic that's emphasized throughout the book, and that is how to stay connected with your teenagers. It says, and I quote, "The most important thing parents can do is to stay connected to their teens. Let them know that you're there for them, no matter what. This is the foundation for good communication and guidance."
So going to our next topic, which is different parenting styles. So the way parents raise their children can differ. In Islam, Islamic parenting refers to raising children according to Islamic principles. So while I was doing research on this project, I came across a book called Exploring Theology and Practices in Islamic Parenting. And this book basically talks about how parenting styles includes an attitude and beliefs about educating children, and how these styles come from what parents' beliefs and what they think is best for their children. Now imagine you have a bunch of ideas on how to raise good kids, like good manners, being respectful, and being kind. Now, these ideas turn into the things you actually do as a parent. It's like an everyday thing, it's like a cycle. This also shows how parenting styles is like a toolbox. So according to the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, the most useful tools parents hold in that toolbox are communication styles, discipline methods, and emotional support. Now obviously there are many tools in that toolbox. However, studies have shown that these 3 are the most effective and the most useful in many situations. Now, according to another book I came across called The Child in Islam, this book basically talks about how parents should use the Quran and Sunnah as guidance. This book further emphasizes this point by hadith from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مرور أولادكم بالصلاة وهم أبناء 7 سنين واضربوهم عليها وهم أبناء 10 سنين وفرقوا بينهم في المضاجع.
Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, command your children to pray when they become 7 years old, and discipline them for it when they become 10, and arrange their bed to sleep separately. Now this hadith emphasizes a gradual and considerate approach to guiding children, acknowledging their developmental stages and their individual needs. Because each child is different, right? Each child has their own different strengths, weaknesses, and problems, whether it's psychological, social, or mental. Each child is different and should be treated fairly. This also relates to when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, fear Allah and treat each children fairly. He emphasized that 3 times, showing you the importance of fairness and justice when dealing with children. Now, another core principle of Islamic parenting is Tawheed, or the oneness of Allah. Allah says in Surah Luqman, ayat 13, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ قال لقمان لبنيه وهو يعظه يا بني لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. He says, O mention O Muhammad, when Luqman said to his son while he was instructing him, O my son, do not associate anything with Allah. Indeed, association with him is great injustice. Now, as you can see, Prophet Luqman warns his son how extremely unjust it is associating anything with Allah. This ayah serves a reminder to parents of how important it is to instill Tawheed at a young age. How important it is to allow children to develop the habit of believing and worshiping one God. This also relates to a story from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next slide, please. So according to Ibn Ishaq, who is a prominent Islamic historian, there was a pre-Islamic event where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very young, and he attended an event which included a lot of idol worshiping. And the Prophet ﷺ at a young age refused to partake in many activities that included idol worshiping, such as eating. And while the children were eating under the names of the idols, the Prophet ﷺ declared that he would only eat under the name of Allah. Now this shows the early development of his belief in one God, which is the core principle of Tawheed. Now this also correlates to the next topic, which is a transition to parenthood. So going back to the book I mentioned earlier, Exploring Theology and Practice in Islamic Parenting, this book further explores the roles and responsibilities of parents. Right? Parenting in Islam is viewed as divinely mandated because parents will be held accountable on how well they raise their children and what education they give to them. And a related hadith on this topic from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, next.
قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيه فالأمير راع وهو مسؤول والرجل راع على أهله وهو مسؤول والمرأة راعية على بيت زوجها وهي مسؤولة وكلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته.
Prophet ﷺ says, all of you are shepherds. All of you are shepherds and each of you is responsible for his flock. A man is the shepherd of the people of his house and he is responsible. A woman is the shepherd of the house of her husband and she is responsible. Each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible. So this hadith emphasizes the leadership within the family. Right? Each person is like a shepherd responsible for their own flock, as in those who they care for. Everyone, regardless of their role, has duties they must fulfill with goodness, and they will be held accountable on what they manage these responsibilities.
The effects of marital stability can be easily shown through children's behavior and development, especially in terms of how it affects their emotional stability, academic achievements, and social development. Stable marriages are foundations for children's emotional stability. According to the American Psychological Association, studies have shown that growing up in a home with 2 stable and happy parents is one of the strongest protective factors against a wide variety of mental, physical, educational, and peer-related problems. During the early stages of development, children are very emotionally aware and can sense tension and mistrust in a relationship at a young age. This is a technique called observational learning. Observational learning, according to the Australian Catholic University, is, and I quote, a mechanism by which intrafamilial aggression is thought to be positively associated with children's maladjustment. This just means that by observing aggressive behavior within the household, children can learn and process this behavior and may use it as a way to express their emotions to their friends and family, leading to further conflicts. To combat this, however, it is encouraged to have healthy and positive communication within the home to show children how to properly and positively express their emotions. Another prominent way marital stability can affect children is through their academic achievements and advancements. According to the Institute of Family Studies, children raised in stable married parent families are more likely to excel in school and generally earn higher grade point averages. Support and help from the home can also reflect in children's grades and behaviors at school. Kids Health suggests that parents should be there to listen and talk, as well as make sure that their children feel validated and acknowledged. Kids Health says, and I quote, parents can provide extra support and stability. Listen to your child. Talk to them. Help them feel safe and loved. Finally, social development within children is another major aspect affected by marital stability. A study done by Rikuya Hosokawa and Toshiki Katsura suggests that a healthy and stable marriage helps children develop ample mechanisms to communicate with their peers, with the opposite being just as true. This study showed that the behavior of parents with lower self-esteem or aggressive behavior reflected within their children on how they acted towards their family and friends.
So, a variety of single parenting situations. So, single parenting encompasses various scenarios, each with unique behaviors and consequences. Family dynamics differ based on whether the single parent is a mother or father, leading to distinct challenges for each household. The absence of one parent results in specific issues unique to each family's situation. Emotional and social challenges. Children in single-parent families may experience loneliness, insecurity, confusion, or depression. The absence of one parent often means a lack of role models affecting children's understanding of family structure and positive interactions. These children might face difficulties in forming relationships and navigating social environments. So, Islamic support for single parenting. Single parents are urged to follow the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, embodying good morals such as patience, kindness, and honesty. Building a strong support system within the community and extended family is vital for single parents. Reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strengthening one's faith and seeking comfort through prayer, dua, is crucial for single parents. Teaching children to turn to Allah during times of hardship and stress builds their resilience and their spiritual strength. And as Allah mentioned many times in the Quran, إِنَّهُ هُوَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ, and your Lord is most forgiving, the most merciful. This ayah provides assurance of Allah's support. Furthermore, following the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's example, parents should embody Islamic values such as patience, kindness, and honesty. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The best of you is the best of his family," highlighting the importance of treating family members well. Children learn by observing their parents, so demonstrating these Islamic values in daily action is crucial. Joint accountability in parenting. So Islam acknowledges the complementary roles of mothers and fathers in raising children. Mothers often focus on care and nurturing, while fathers may provide direction and discipline. Many Quranic verses and hadith emphasize the joint responsibility of both parents and to protect and nurture their family.
In Islam, divorce is highly disliked. According to a hadith from the Prophet, a spouse makes up half of one's faith, making divorce an act that takes away half of your faith. Abdullah ibn Umar narrated that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said,
عبد الله بن عمر قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ابغض الحلال إن إلى الله الطلاق.
Of the lawful acts, the most detestable to Allah is divorce. This hadith highlights the disliked nature of divorce amongst Muslim couples, emphasizing the need to thoroughly evaluate a marriage before deciding to divorce. In many ways, divorce can bring about situations in which abuse and neglect are common in children. Therefore, divorce must be seen as a last resort to an unsolvable problem, and efforts should be made on both sides to prioritize communication, counseling, and support mechanisms to address all underlying issues in a relationship before considering divorce as a viable option. In addition to this, the right of custody after divorce is dependent on who is able to provide better care for the child. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As reported that a woman came to the Prophet and said,
يا رسول الله إن ابني هذا كان بطني له وعاء وثديي له سفاء وحجري له حواء وإن أباه طلقني وأراد أن يتزعه مني فقال لها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنت الحق به ما لم تنكحي.
O Messenger of Allah, this son of mine, my belly was a vessel for him, my breasts were a source of nourishment for him, and my lap was a place of rest for him. but now his father has divorced me and wants to take him away from me. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said to her, "You have more right to him as long as you do not marry." This hadith emphasizes the priority of the mother in custody of the child, especially when they are young. It is recommended that the child or the children stay in the custody of the mother unless there is a valid reason to do so otherwise. However, the financial responsibility still lies with the father, as he is responsible for the child even after separating from his wife. Such an arrangement, although it may be seen as inconvenient, is averted by encouraging strong and healthy marriages.
So in the survey we sent out to parents, we asked if there should be a parenting workshop in high school curriculum. And as you can see, 92% said yes, while only 7% said no. So one of these key topics would be expanded upon would be taking care of nurturing a child. Now the survey shows that people agree that high school should teach how to become good parents. You know, they want to learn how to take care of kids, what to feed them, how to feed them, and for them how to play safety as well. And people also think it's important to know how to handle feelings and emotions in situations. And these classes could help students now and in the future by making them better at taking care of kids and building strong family relationships.
So after receiving these results on the survey, it is not difficult to tie back the importance of teaching Islamic principles at a young age. As many parents agreed, we could see that 28% of them said that teachings from the Quran and teachings from the Sunnah of the Prophet were what influenced them into building an Islamic foundation for their kids. And then in the following question, we asked that specific Islamic teachings influence parents on how to raise their kids. How to raise their kids. Teachings and Sunnah of the Quran was 28%, the nature of Islam was 22%, and the eminent values in Islam were also 22%. Furthermore, we've asked parents what is one thing you're proud of that you did while raising your kids. We received a variety of results ranging from giving them a strong Islamic foundation to having a comfortable connection with them at a young age. Going back to the part of the presentation that discusses the effects of marital stability in children, it is imperative to understand how much a parent's example and actions reflect within their children. To further analyze this point, many parents believe that their respect for others, regardless of race, gender, and background, is echoed in their children. On the contrary, many parents reflected on what they wished they had done differently when raising their children, and agreed that not only should they have been more patient, but also surrounded them with a more prominent Islamic environment. These answers to the previous two questions show that many parents believe that the Islamic environment and open connection and communication with their children are the main pillars in raising their children, as touched upon throughout the presentation.
Raising Muslim children in the 21st century is a challenge like no other. With many forms of exposure to possibly haram things, such as school, friends, and most importantly social media, many things can go wrong within the process of raising a child. So what is the solution to raising a good Muslim child? Thankfully, new avenues for guidance are emerging every day, as well as the main source on how to be a good Islamic parent, the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sunnah. Problems within families can emerge from all sides, and in order to solve these problems, it is crucial to understand what the root of the problem is. Conflict between the husband and the wife should be privately discussed and solved to provide the best possible care and example for the children. Along with this, divorce should be viewed as the last case scenario solution. The concepts of single parenthood pose a risk to not only children who have not yet mentally and physically developed, but also to the minds of the single parents themselves, who face a great mental and physical strain in their lives for a large portion of their child's growth period. Islam's encouragement of the union of a man and a woman by the sacred bond of marriage is rendered half of one's faith, not just because Allah has willed it, but because a successful and healthy marriage provides the foundation for society to develop, nurture, and advocate for growth and change. These are our works cited. Thank you. If you guys have any questions.
All right, thank you so much for that. Now we have time for the judges to ask questions. We have 10 minutes, and then after that we have 5 minutes for the judges to score, and then we'll have the next group on.
It's incredible. Thank you so much. In your research, did you come across that early stage, we're talking comments on the salary, with the wet nurse up until the age of 6? We're still looking for exactly what kind of skills the nursing mother gave and built around him as an infant child. Did you come across anything that would help us understand what we could learn from that?
So, alhamdulillah, I've been at MIT for a long time, so I've heard of the story that you're referring to right now, where the Prophet Muhammad was raised by a wet nurse until 6 years of age. And while we were researching this project, honestly, it did come across my research, the story of the Prophet. Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of resources out there, so we couldn't fit everything into the presentation. But the skills that the wet nurse may provide for raising the child, especially since she's not the mother of the child, is just caring for the child, making sure that the child is being acknowledged, whether the child feels hungry or wants to be held, or it's just crying. Sometimes babies just need to cry, sometimes children just need to cry. So the skills that the wet nurse can provide for this child to comfort them and make sure that they feel safe and loved during this crucial growth period, those are just some of the ideas that could possibly a wet nurse could have done to help the Prophet. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Should I ask Sister Marian to repeat the question? Oh. No, you're fine.
How many survey respondents did you get? And what, if any, changes would you make to the questions you asked after seeing the responses?
We got like about 40 responses, and I think we would probably add a few more questions on what advice they would give to upcoming parents and those who want to learn about how to become parents in high school. And yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. I also had a question about the survey, and I know that 93% said that they would like it, and I just was curious about what was the response from the 7% who weren't sure if they wanted that parenting workshop curriculum.
Sorry, I have one. Sorry.
When we were looking at the responses, the way that we did this survey is that we wanted to make it a free answer so that people could express why is it that they want parenting or why is it that they don't want parenting in the curriculum. And a lot of the responses that we got from the 7% that said that they didn't want it is that they thought that it was too soon for the children to start learning about parenting. They believe that children in high school should be focusing on their studies, and then maybe in college, they offered an alternative in college to have a parenting workshop. Thank you so much for your time. We really hope you enjoyed our presentation.
So we'll give the judges about 10 minutes to fill out the judging survey, while group 2 can come and get set for their presentation.
Yes.
Yes, they'll have about 7 minutes. Okay, how many minutes do they have? About 7 minutes? Less than 4 minutes. You guys have 4 minutes.
I will have to leave at 10:20. I have class. I have 9th and 10th grade.
For our next group here, we have.
Turn off.
I think they can hear me everywhere. For our next group here, we have Ahmed Balkhisa and Abdullah. They are going to be looking at a new aspect of parenting, setting the right goals, and addressing common challenges. They were advised by Brother Wajdi. He could not be here today. He has an overseas emergency, and so he had to travel. But this group has worked closely with him and other advisors to help them make this project, and I think we're going to see a really great presentation. Please, Ahmed, Abdullah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ahmed, and as Teacher Joanne mentioned, our project is about setting the right goals and addressing common challenges. So while parenting seems like a concept that can only be understood by adults, learning the steps to not only becoming a parent, but also playing the role of a parent is vital, because without it, our children cannot grow and they cannot mature to become the leaders of tomorrow. So the Prophet ﷺ said a hadith about, so the goals that we're addressing in the first part is finding the right spouse and making sure, because without the right marriage there's no parenting that can take place. So the Prophet said a hadith, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تنكح المرأة الأربع لمالها ولحسبها وجمالها ولدينها فاظفر بذات الدين تربت يداك. A woman is married for four things: her faith, her family, her beauty, and her wealth. So marry a religious woman or you will be of the losers. So there are some factors for considering not only the spouse but also the spouse's family. These include faith. So are they faithful? Are they practicing Muslims? Their efforts. So do they volunteer? Do they spend their time in public positively? Are they educated? Do they have a good understanding of today's society and how everything works? And their presence in the public square and public environment. So some of the traits to think about are, for the spouse, are how they spend their time. Are they spending their time wisely? Some of the premarital practices, so traditions and cultures. The roles and responsibilities that both partners will play, not only physically, such as chores and around the house, but also mentally and emotionally. Conflict resolution, as conflict is almost inevitable. There's going to be conflict, so resolving conflict is important. And also diversity in marriage. So a couple hadith that are related. So I'm sure a lot of us have heard the hadith, take advantage of 5 before 5. Take advantage of your health before your sickness, your youth before your old age, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your busyness, and your life before your death. So this just reinforces the point of how the spouse spends their time and what they do. And another hadith is, do not stop talking to one another, do not nurse hatred towards one another, do not be jealous of one another. As fellow brothers and slaves of Allah, it is not lawful for a Muslim to stop talking to his brother for more than 3 days. So in the context of marriage, it is important to make sure that as spouses, you do not, when there's a conflict, you do not just abandon them. You want to work out whatever conflict is present. And Allah says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الناس إن خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعرفوا أن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. And he says, O humanity, we created you from a male and female and made you into peoples and tribes so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous among you. Allah is all-knowing, all-aware. So in the context of marriage here, this is to look for someone who is diverse, because when you marry someone who may not be of the same descent as you, you learn a lot more not only about them but also their practices, and it can help you grow as a person. And in another ayah, Allah says, وَمَنْ آيَاتِهِ إِنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكَنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَّدَةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لِآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. And one of his signs is that he created for you spouses from among yourselves so that you may find comfort in them. And he has placed between you compassion and mercy. Surely in this are signs for people who reflect. So to contextualize this ayah, it is important that in your spouse you find comfort. It is important that you trust them in everything you do. So Allah says in another ayah, men are the caretakers of women, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially. And righteous women are devoutly obedient, and when alone, protective of what Allah has entrusted them with. So this is just another ayah to support how the spouses should be there to care for each other and protect each other and support each other. And in the paper, I talked about an analogy about the ideal concepts in a marriage. You have comfort, so you want to make sure the spouses can trust each other. They can be protected by one another. And of course, the spouses need to make sure they're connected. They need to make sure they're on the same page, as without that, that can cause conflict and problems.
Next, we'll be talking about major challenges. As a parent, the responsibility of taking care of your child is 24/7, and it can be overwhelming. There's constant pressure to provide both physically and emotionally, and this can negatively affect both new parents and their children, in the form of increased stress or anxiety, as well as emotional unavailability. Being a new parent means lack of experience and knowledge, and reaching out to friends and family can break the cycle of toxic relationships between parents and their children. The Prophet ﷺ said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أصبح مطيع الله في الوالدين أصبح له بابان مفتوحان من جنتي وإن كان واحدا فواحدا. This translates to, one who follows the orders of Allah with regards to obeying parents shall have 2 doors of paradise open to him. And if there happens to be only one parent, 1 door of paradise shall open to him. As a Muslim, it's a requirement to honor and respect one's parents. And equally, it falls on the parents to take preventative measures to ensure that their children are on the right path. Instead of harsh discipline, gentle parenting is the key. Parents should always be involved in their child's education, their friendships, and be aware of all outside influences. The National Library of Medicine, National Center of Biotech Information says that when looking at cases of children with active parents in their academic and social life, they show significantly fewer behavioral problems. Creating a safe environment. Parenting is an inflexible task even when our lives are not. It's a complex and rewarding journey with many ups and downs. Marital issues can create immense stress in the home, especially when young children are involved. And often children are used as bargaining chips between fights. To avoid this from happening, it's important to first try everything in your power to communicate clearly and frequently. And try to understand where your spouse is coming from. If that doesn't work, then you can seek a mediator, a sheikh, or a close, unbiased family friend to make sure that things don't escalate. Making time for each other and prioritizing keeping a safe environment for children. Parenting is interdisciplinary and requires an understanding of psychology, education, sociology, and health. According to your child's developmental stages and behavior, it's extremely important to understand them.
This helps in communication, setting boundaries, and realistic goals. Fostering a child's education sets them up for success in everyday skills like critical thinking. Engagement starts in the home from an early age. In Islam, parenting styles are based on the Quran and Sunnah. It's also cultural practices and social norms play a huge role in socialization. And arguably the most important role of a parent is ensuring that your child's health, mental well-being are taken care of. Making sure to look at their nutrition, things like healthcare and hygiene, which promotes healthy habits well into their adult life. In the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 286, Allah states, لا يكلف الله إلا وسعها. Allah does not burden the soul beyond what it can bear. Parenting is difficult and daunting task, and in the Quran, Allah provides comfort and guidance to parents who are struggling. Each person is ensured with a responsibility that is well within their capabilities, and parents must be compassionate and patient with themselves first by following the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Parents are reassured in their struggles, and they understand that Allah's mercy and guidance is always there to support them. Patience is defined by the Cambridge Dictionary as the ability to wait, to continue doing something despite difficulties, or to suffer without complaint or becoming annoyed. Children at a young age are molded by their parents' actions, and being exposed to a healthy example of emotional regulation, naturally the child learns how to manage their emotions. Patience in parenting also creates trust, providing a sense of security between the parent and the child, and it can lead to effective communication, problem solving, independence, and deeper future relationships. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was always patient when regarding his grandsons, Hassan and Hussein. And according to Abdullah ibn Shabar, he narrates a time when the Prophet ﷺ was leading a congregational prayer, and Hassan had climbed onto his back and began to play with his hair. Laughing in his ear and distracting him, and instead of harshly disciplining him, the Prophet was gentle and calmly continued his prayer and picked up his grandson. And when people had asked why he had spent so much time in prostration, wondering if the Prophet ﷺ had received a revelation, he said, لم يكن ولكن أبني أرحلتني فكرهت أن أجهله حتى يقضي حاجته. No such thing happened, but my grandson was riding on my back, and I did not like to disturb him until he had enough. After gently explaining, he lifted them off his back and carried them the rest of the day. The Prophet ﷺ is a remarkable example of patience and understanding, and his kind and gentle approach is something that parents should keep in mind.
Father and mother should work as a team. So, the most important stage in a person's life is their childhood. What happens in someone's childhood will become a huge factor on how they will turn out. As a parent, you must pay attention to how you're raising your child, teaching them good values and showing them good will lead them to becoming a better person. Although it sounds simple, raising a child is very complex and challenging. To make a family successful, both parents need to work together to support the family in their own ways. Someone needs to support the families financially and the other emotionally. Raising a child is a long-time commitment which will occupy a huge portion of the parent's life. And it's not easy. Raising a child requires a substantial amount of energy, financial resources, and resource management. Now, for an ayah I have right here.
والمؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة ويطيعون الله ورسوله أولئك
سيرحمكم الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. The believers, both men and women, are guardians of one another. They encourage good and forbid evil, establish prayer and pay alms tax, and obey Allah and His Messenger. It is they who will be shown Allah's mercy. Surely Allah is Almighty, all-wise. So, how can someone take this ayah in a family context? You see, the father and mother should work together to help guard their family by establishing good relations with their child and avoiding consequential situations that may compromise that relationship. Children are high maintenance. They require clothing, hygienic items, a bed, medical assistance, and etc. Children often want additional items like toys and electronics. Financial and behavioral challenges can be mentally taxing on parents and can get difficult. So to successfully manage your child and yourself, you must have good resource management. Time, energy, money, and emotional availability are things a parent needs to coordinate and manage to help keep a good perception from the child. The child's perception is also an important factor. The child's perception can be influenced by the parent's actions. If you always, for instance, if you always yell at your child, that'll make them see you as a harsh and scary person. You should show mercy upon your child to keep that good perception. Trying to keep a good perception will help build that relationship that is needed for a family to be successful. A hadith I have here. Abu Hurairah reported that Al-Qarab Habis saw Allah's Apostle ﷺ kissing his grandson Hassan. He said, I have 10 children, but I have never kissed any one of them. Whereupon Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, he who does not show mercy toward his children, no mercy would be shown to him. Now, what this hadith is talking about is that as parents, we should be merciful to our children because our children is a mercy upon us. And being merciful to our children, Allah will be merciful to you. And as a parent, you need to be able to influence your child by being a good role model. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. Indeed, in the Messenger of Allah, you have an excellent example for whoever has hope in Allah in the last day and remembers Allah often. This ayah is basically saying that we should look to our Prophet as he is the perfect role model. This shows that having a good role model is important because when you look up to someone, you'll be influenced by them and you will strive to be just like them. And now parents need to avoid instilling bad concepts into their child. When your child comes to you with a question, you should try to answer as honestly as possible and not lie. And don't avoid it by shrugging the question off. Because then that could be taken the wrong way by your child. They could mimic your actions and also lie. Then if they do something wrong, use appropriate discipline based on the severity of the action, while you make sure they understand what they did and why it was wrong. Try understanding your child's development so you can become a better parent. In the book Parenting Matters, they say that educated parents on child development can avoid negative consequences. Parents should aim to be role models and work together to support their children. The Prophet told us to first play with our children for the first 7 years, then teach them for the next 7, and then advise them for the next 7 and after. Being a parent means you need to be there for your child every step of the way and help support them. Your end goal as a parent is to have the best possible outcome for your child.
So So we conducted a survey, and the survey focused on mainly like support for the children at home, how much time the parents spend with their children, and questions really pertaining to those two concepts. So the first question we asked was, to what extent do you feel supported by community in your efforts to practice Islamic parenting? And 35% said mostly supported, 24% said completely supported, and 26% said somewhat supported. So a majority said that they do feel at least some support from their community.
So the next question we asked is approximately how much time do you spend with your child a week? The majority of the people said 15 hours or more, and 23.1% said 10 hours, and only 15% said 3 to 5 hours.
Our next question was, how often do you incorporate Islamic teachings and practices into your child's daily routine? The majority said daily, and the secondary said multiple times a day.
The next question we asked was, how capable do you think you are to support your child's learning at home? And an overwhelming 64% said they are capable, and 29% said they are extremely capable, with a minority saying that they don't think they are capable of doing so.
In your opinion, what level do you agree that you're capable of dealing with your child's emotions appropriately? A large majority said that they feel capable. About a quarter said they're extremely capable, and only 9% said they're incapable.
Then our next question was, how do you define success as a parent? The majority said instilling positive values, and the secondary said setting and achieving realistic goals. So, conclusion. Understanding the Islamic values and the perspective through which parenting takes place is a stepping stone that sets a course for a brighter future, so the Ummah and claim the narrative and become the leaders of tomorrow. In this paper, the subtopics of setting goals, comprehending those goals, facing challenges, and ensuring the parents work as a team were covered. These are the stepping stones to proper Islamic parenting and are vital in the journey to building the next generation. Thank you.
There'll be 10 minutes of questions from the judges.
I just had a quick question. It's probably referenced, but what's the reference for the 5 before 5? I like that, but I just didn't see.
The reference was, I believe,
Assalamu alaikum. Great presentation, by the way, guys. I just had kind of a personal question, I guess, and either one of you guys can answer it, or all three of you guys, but I'm just curious as to which examples from your own upbringing and home lives have helped contribute to your presentation today.
So myself personally, my mom is in the room, so I'm going to try and keep it accurate as possible. Myself, when I was growing up, I would just be doing my own thing, maybe homework or some free time, and every time my parents walk by my room, they tell me, remember to pray, remember to spend your time in prayer, in ibadah, and making sure that you're making time for Allah, because all these other things, they'll come. And so really just them instilling that mindset that I need to pray, that I need to be mindful of Allah, has contributed greatly to what we talked about, actually.
For reference, one of the questions we asked in the survey was how much time we spend with a child. And for me personally, when I was younger, I spent a lot of time with my parents, and they were an example for me. And so I was curious to know, from the perspective of the parents, how they think that spending time with their child is able to affect their child. And I would say it was a large example on how the importance of being patient and to understand your child.
One thing that I always think about is that every day my father calls me to come pray with him, and there are days where he's not there, he's at work, so I have to remember to pray myself. And one thing that I always worry about is that when my father is no longer there, I'll have to remember to pray my salahs, and I want to, inshallah, do the same thing as my father and call my own children to salah.
Thank you. I have a question about your population sample. So we have two questions. So how did you reach your sample? How were the questions collected? How were the responses collected?
So we had help from our advisor. So he was able to reach the population of the parents. We have students here. And so we really wanted to get their perspective. And so we had some help from our advisor.
So thank you for answering. My follow-up question to that is, it's a rather small sample size, and that's kind of indicative of just the size of the school in general. But do you think that that's really reflective of the general Islamic community? Or do you think that, or no, now at the end of your research and your surveys, would you have done anything differently or changed any of your questions? Or were there any more questions that you wanted to add?
I think looking at, after research and everything we did and results, I think one of the questions we could have added would have to be just ask people, do they think this, kind of just reciprocate what you asked us, to ask them, do you think this is what a majority of Muslims feel like, and also maybe to give some focus comparing in the United States as a Western perspective versus outside the United States, overseas. That could have been one of the questions that we added. Hopefully that answers it. Sure, yeah.
Okay. So then, to follow up to that then, so do you think that there's a large discrepancy or just difference in parenting styles compared to, for example, like in the student population here, like first generation immigrant students versus second generation, and how could that have been accounted for?
I would say to that is that definitely does have a large impact on the survey results. Each person does, like cultural differences in social upbringing, they all affect the way that you do raise your child. A lot of parents like to style after their own parents. And so I would say that definitely has affected our sample size. The majority of the people we asked are Muslims in this community. And so it's mostly a reflection of, I would say, this community.
Judges will have about 5 minutes to collate the scores, and then the next group can start getting ready.
Let us know when you guys are ready.
As long as your group is all here?
I'm here too. I'll spread it out.
Yes. Oh, your group?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I had the distinct pleasure of working with Sumaya Abdullah and Abid, and also with Sheikh Muhammad, who was also their advisor for this project, which is a slightly different, but related to the other ones that you've seen, which is character building in our Muslim families, and related to the growth and development of children inside of families that leads to character building. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Looking forward to the presentation. Sheikh Muhammad, would you like to say anything? Actually, it's all
families based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. My name is Abdullah Saad.
My name is Mary Hussein.
Alright, my name is Abdullah. And today we'll be talking about بناء الشخصية في الأسرة المسلمة, character building in our Muslim families. So here we have the table of contents. So, how far can pop psychology be trusted? So pop psychology is basically theories that are used for approaching the problems that are lacking spiritual components of the development in the major extent as compared to the Quranic approach. As it has stated in the Quran, there are certain things that are important in the growth of the human beings, whether those are physical or even aspects that include spiritual growth. Notably, it is here to emphasize that pop psychology theories are grounded on the principles of Western culture. So, concepts regarding individuals' development are simplified and made easily understandable. So, pop psychology basically focuses on providing advice that resonates with our everyday experience. Pop psychology emphasizes on relatable and practical advice for everyday life. So it offers actionable strategies that helps us manage stress, improve relationships, and personal growth. It also focuses on common psychological themes such as development, learning, and personal growth. And some examples could be found in self-help books, online resources, and even TV shows like Dr. Phil. And next I'll be going into an example of Erik Erikson's 8 psychological development stages. And in Erik Erikson's psychological development stages, each stage represented a critical period in the human life, whether those specific conflicts must be resolved for a healthy development. And the stages also included concepts like trust versus mistrust in infancy and identity versus role confusion in adulthood. Next, I'll be going into Cole's experiential learning cycle. And in Cole's experience, he described it as a learning process where knowledge was created throughout the transformation of experience. And the cycle included concrete experience that reflect observations and active experimentation. Phases of human development of Quran. So here we'll be talking about how the Quran explains human development. And this includes the physical, mental, spiritual, and moral aspect of it.
وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِّن طِينٍ ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَّكِينٍ ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا النُّطْفَةَ عَلَقَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْعَلَقَةَ مُضْغَةً فخلقنا المضغة عظاما فكسونا العظام لحما ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين.
We created man from extractive clay. Then we made him as a drop in a place of settlement, firmly fixed. Then we made the drop into an alaqa, which is a leech-like structure. And then we made the alaqa into a mudghah, tube-like substance. So here, basically, Allah describes the creation of humans from an extract clay. Initially, humans were created as a drop. Then they were put in a firmly fixed place. The drop then transforms into an alaqa, which can be understood as a clinging leech-like structure. The alaqa develops into a mudghah, resembling the tube-like substance. This process shows the stages of human development and highlights the miraculous nature of human development in Islam. So here we have another ayah.
ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير.
And we have enjoined upon man for his parents. His mother carried him, increasing her in weakness upon weakness, and is weaning in 2 years. So here, Allah basically commands that the humans to show care for and gratitude towards their parents. The verse specifically mentions the struggles of the mother during the pregnancy. This really highlights the importance of honoring our parents, especially mothers who undergo such a hard and physical process, and with all the emotional challenges that they have to face during pregnancy. This verse really underscores the duration of breastfeeding, which is typically around the 2 years that this verse is talking about. And the parent really plays a critical role in the upbringing and care for the children. So adulthood is marked by increasing responsibilities, and some of those responsibilities can be yourself. It's important that you fulfill your responsibilities, your duties. For us students, it's important that we finish our homeworks in time. Also, another one is their families. It's important that we take care of our families, take care of the sick ones in our families. And we were ordered by Allah to take care of our parents as they get older. And it's also important that we give back to our community that raised us. Like, for example, NET. The community's beloved around here, and it's so wide in culture that we have so many different identities and cultures to talk to, and we get to learn so much things, which leads me to this ayah. Read in the name of your Lord who created you. Allah tells us to keep seeking knowledge, because there's no such thing as a limit to knowledge. You can always keep learning.
Next, we're going to be talking about the miracles of conception, pregnancy, and delivery. We're recently started talking about how pregnancy comes to be. First, it's just the embryo develops from a small dot, and from half an inch to developing into human form. By the time it reaches about 4 weeks, that's when the heartbeat starts showing, and also the human features. And also when it becomes about 3 months, the baby is about 4 inches, and then by 4 months, it is about 6 inches. And they start showing human features such as fingers, toes, and brows. And they're also able to hear the mother's voice, heartbeat, and maybe even surrounding outside noise. Here we're just talking about the challenges and joys of pregnancy, and obviously the mother will be facing many challenges during her pregnancy, especially during her 7th month. She's going to be mostly restricted and needs help, and it just needs mothers during this time needs extra attention and help during this time. And also it just shows the many challenges that women face, that despite that they are able to push through and do this all for their children, which goes into the saying of which means travel upon travel, which goes and talks about what the mother feels and about the many difficulties and challenges that she faces in order to have her child come into this world, and to later take care of the child and give the love that she was trying to give from the beginning. This ayah over here just explains
ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين.
And we have enjoined upon man to his parents good treatment. His mother carried him with hardship and gave birth to him with hardship, which just emphasizes about the challenges the mother has faced during childbirth, and how we need to be able to give back for the many things that the mothers have done for us. And so we're going to be talking about the various stages of human growth. And from birth to 8 months, that's when the child needs the most attention. And to do this, you can just be there for the child and also make sure that they're taking the shots and make sure the child is healthy. Next is just be able to have a positive expectations from and be warm with them, so you can have that relationship with your child, and that can be intact maybe still in the future. Next is just during 5 to 18 months, they become more aware, and during this time they also become more physical with crawling, and they become more playful. So during that time, you need to be able to set a time for your child or during this time, and just be able to give them that attention and play with them, and also to make friendly sounds and music for the baby's ears, so it also can have a positive warm environment with your child. During their childhood is when they become more self-aware, and they also have, and this is during the time you need to be, you don't want to be too compliant with your child, and so they'll become too, to believe that everything was there for them, and also you need to to be more assertive with them, so they can know there's consequences to their actions. Next, just have regular interaction with your child, so that relationship can still be there in the future, and they can be more, they can realize that they can be dependent on you. And just genetic factors, which is their cultures and other things, would make them different from other children as well, which is a huge factor into their future personality. And their caregiver, as I said before, should be able to give the attention to the child during this time, and also to make sure they're 100% healthy. For up to 4 to 7 year olds, this is where they start to have fear, mood swings, and they're concerned about their whole society. And also, this is where you need to be showing good role model, because they tend to imitate you during this time. So you need to be able to show good examples to your child, and so they can do it themselves also in the future. This is when they become more, they're going through changes, and during this time, adult stage for girls are during 9 to 13, boys is 11 to 15, and tends to change sometimes. They also become more short-tempered, conservative, and their peer pressure from people around them, and just conscious of their bodies. So during this time, make sure that you're there for them, also to make sure that you're guiding them and they're going through the right path. Obviously, there's physical changes, such as boys having deepening voice and girls changes in speech tone, and they tend to be more awkward during this time because they believe that you have not gone through what they're going through, and they feel embarrassed to talk about what's going on. And they also have some dilemmas, such as their career path, what's going on in school, and other things as well. And during this time, it's important to just be there to guide them and to understand what they're going through, and try to not make sure you're not trying to become too pushy during this time, and make sure that they know they'll be able to come to you during any time. Here is just talking about how during this time we don't believe during the term teenagers, we believe more young adolescents, and during this time that adults should be able to guide their children to make sure they're staying on the right path.
And during this time, it just talks about how they're become more peaked during 21 through 35, and they've become able to have more stable relationship with others, increasing responsibilities. Now they have more of a stable job. And during 35 to 50, it's just they turn from becoming more physical, trying to solve their problems with physical abilities to more with their thinking abilities, and also to give back to your community now since they have everything that they need. And during this time is when older folks tend to have more decline in their physical and mental abilities, and despite them having a decline in their and losing some memories, they still carry that wisdom, and people need to be able to they're allowed to go over there and to ask wisdom from their elders. And despite their decline in physical, mental abilities, they still have that wisdom which we can learn from.
هو الذي يصوركم في الأرحام كيف يشاء لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم.
This just describes about God's power in achieving fetus, but also describes that during your very stages of life, that God will always be with you, and that you can always turn to Him, and He'll be always there for you.
Alright, so now we're going to move on to love and fear of God. So, it's encouraged in Islam and practiced by the Prophet that during the younger years of a child's life, you should emphasize the blessings, love, and rewards that are given to us by Allah during these years, and delay the concepts of hellfire and punishment and fear until later stages of development. The reason this is encouraged is because threatening punishment kind of hinders freedom, creativity, and imagination in these young children, and pulls away their willingness to take risks in a natural and healthy manner. So we should focus on love first in these younger years, creating a loving environment, because children learn by observing their parents and what's around them. So you should always show compassion, kindness, and forgiveness while raising your children. You should also share stories of Allah's mercy from the Quran and the Sunnah, the Prophet stories, all these stories about Allah's mercy and how He grants blessings to His slaves. You should also encourage children to express gratitude for Allah's blessings and help them build a sense of appreciation and love towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this is a quick visual. How you can see the reason this is also important, emphasizing the love and the compassion towards Allah, is because you don't want to raise your kids to have a kind of a negative image of God. And so you can see in this staircase of submission that the more punishment and rule focused your parenting style is, the more your children see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a cop-like God, and punishing and looking out for every mistake that you make. On the other hand, we have the more love-focused your parenting style is, the more your children tend to see God as Al-Wali, one of the 99 names of Allah, meaning the protecting friend, the supporter, the ally. So, if you want to, we have an ayah here that mentions the Al-Wali, and I just want to focus on one part. أنت ولي في الدنيا والآخرة, and it means that you are my guardian in this world and the hereafter. So we should be focusing on love when raising children, and children learn best by observing their parents and observing what is around them. Children are like sponges, and I know here a very popular saying that if you're here for some of the speeches that are given, you've probably heard this. Children have what affects a child's personality: 33% from their parents and at home, 33% from the community, 33% from school and their peers. So a lot of what a child learns about and how they act, it's all from what's around them and observing. You should share stories from the Quran and Islamic history that highlight Allah's mercy, and encourage children to express gratitude. And you should also use natural consequences. For example, if a child doesn't want to share, they miss out on the blessing that is sharing. And so this helps lead to connect the dots between Allah's disliking of an action to the negative consequences that come with that action. You should also discuss Allah's justice and how He rewards good deeds and forgives sincere repentance. And this kind of instills a healthy respect for Allah's power. And so, when you're raising your child, it's pretty much giving da'wah to them, bringing them closer to the deen. So, da'wah to your children is recommended to be intensified during the teenage years, this period of guidance. And this is because there's natural peaks of energy during this phase of life, and hopefully the goal is to direct these forces toward the worship of Allah. And you're aiming to guide development, not to cause them to lose self-confidence. So you want to be gentle with this and teach them about the deen and Islam. You must be careful not to offend them or hurt these feelings during this sensitive time, as we've mentioned before. And it's also recommended to start memorizing the Quran during these, early in a person's life, be more connected with their religion. There's also a study by Dr. Yusuf Khalifa that found students who focused on studies on memorizing the Quran and then returned back to normal science studies. 90% of the students passed advanced classes in those subjects. So it's beneficial in more than one way. We also have this quick visual of like the different types of parenting. You can see there's permissive parenting, which is like you could just go for it, no rules. They're more lenient. And then there's neglectful parents who have little time. They're kind of passive with their children. There's authoritarian, which is very strict and like because I said so type of parenting. And then authoritative is what you want to try and go is the goal. It's like clear standards, responsive, high expectations, but you can like talk about it and focus on the connection that you have with your children. So you can see the different outcomes of each of these types of parenting. So with fear, with loving our children, it goes all the way down at the bottom. You can see submission, reluctance, and religious doubts. Because on one hand, you don't want to create an image of God that's cult-like, but also on the other hand, you don't want to create an image of God that's just a cosmic wish granter. So there's a middle ground that you want to find and create a relationship with your children that ultimately affect their stance on God and religion. So we just want to go over a survey that we conducted. These are the age demographic that we got. Most of them were younger and 11 to 18. We asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your understanding of the Islamic concept of the miracle of conception, pregnancy, and delivery? And you can see that most of the answers are on my end. I know here at MET there's some classes about that in Islamic studies and things like that. So, inshallah, the people who don't know much, they can learn more here at MET. We also asked, how much difficulty do you believe parents face during the period of 18 to 36 months in a child's development? You can see a large chunk answered 8, and that's to be expected, you know. It is a difficult period for parents, and it should be recognized, and you should show gratitude towards your parents for raising you. He said, in your opinion, how significant is the role of discipline in shaping a child's behavior between the ages of 4 and 7? And pretty much everyone answered that they believe that it has a very big impact and big role. How much do you think cultural and religious beliefs influence attitudes towards puberty and its many aspects? Looks like the computer doesn't like this question. But you can see that a lot of people answered very highly in this question as well. We asked, do you agree with the statement that adolescence is a period of significant emotional growth? And this one was pretty split, strongly. Actually, they would all agree. Most of the people said they agree, and some people said that they strongly agree. And this just goes to show that, like, in an Islamic point of view, there's not really a teenage year, but emotional growth. And then that also ties into the next question, which is Islamic concept of age of guidance, commonly used term teenage years. So a lot of people say that, a lot of people thought that there was some difference, and then the minority thought that there was no difference or a big difference. But yeah, we wanted to try and say that, we wanted to try and share with you guys that in Islam there's not really in teenage years, but it's more so an age of guidance. And so that, I'm going to wrap it up.
Including thoughts. So overall, character building is a lifelong process that in Muslim homes, which requires a lot of effort, commitment, and understanding the process of human growth. Islamic principles are important because the people of the world follow the noble Quran and the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Then we can create a strong, compassionate, and righteous person who will help change the world. It is our hope that Allah will guide us and assist us in this noble task. So here are our references.
We have 10 minutes of questions from the judges.
Any questions?
So great job, guys. It was really a thorough presentation about character building. I was curious as to, in your research, have you guys found any sort of external or community support for families in this community? So I'm thinking like MC or Tiger, Beaverton, all this Washington County area that offers support for families of this community as far as the parenting stuff goes. And it's okay if you haven't found any, but it's kind of a vague question, but I'm just wondering if you guys have found like groups or support groups or anything for parents and children and families.
I mean, we haven't really found any specific instances of like things like that, but I'm sure that if you reach out to like any mosque, even MET, if you come here, if you reach out, there's obviously someone to help. Someone can help you, and if you have any questions, you can just reach out. Don't be shy, and yeah, you can definitely find something.
What, if any, changes would you make? What, if any, changes would you make to your paper, your research, or your survey questions, knowing what you know now?
I think the only thing we would really change is probably the survey. We would want to get reached out more to more people, to more older people, because you can see most of our age range were up to 11 to 18, mostly the people who answered. So probably it's the number one thing that I would change.
So did you come across any studies that gave you an idea of the like people who are raised in the Muslim community with the resources versus the people who are Muslim without the community, like how they develop, like any studies that show like you're more successful, you're more determined, any type of results in like the literature?
Alright, so like Teacher Jawad was saying when he was first introducing the subject, like a lot of, according to Pew Research, a lot of people in our age demographic, like 18, around like the teenage years up to like 20, a lot of people are saying that religion has nothing to do with their everyday life, and that's really what we want to like change. And we want more people to integrate Islam and make Islam their guiding like factor, and integrating religion into pretty much everything in their life, and ultimately worshiping Allah for our goal, Jannah, inshallah. But yeah, that's being raised in a Muslim family is really a blessing, and it makes it easier for children to like continue on with their religion in their life, and yeah, it's definitely a blessing.
Yeah, and the youth that basically focus their attention to making Islam a way of life and practicing it and making sure that they live around it, it can be easier for them because they're definitely they're more focused and they know which track to be on.
There's no more questions.
So, given your research and your own personal experiences, what do you guys believe is the cause or the reason for the dichotomy between the Islamic view of age of adolescence versus the Western view of teenagehood/adolescence? I'm just curious about your own opinions and how your own opinions kind of guided your writings.
Yeah, really the biggest difference between the two concepts of this age group is that in Western studies they refer to as teenage years. It's more seen as a rebellious phase, kind of finding themselves and things like that. But in an Islamic point of view, it's more like an age of learning and guidance where you should put more effort into trying to direct their attention toward the deen, and because that age group really shapes what their adulthood is going to look like. If you're really steadfast during that age, it's going to be really easy for you, inshallah, during your adulthood. But that's really the biggest difference between the Western concept and the Islamic concept. Yeah, I think in my life personally, I think I felt the difference between the two. Yeah.
I did used to go to a public school, so I kind of saw both sides of that side and this side, and I could definitely say that focusing when you're in a Muslim school and around Muslim people and you're close to your community, it definitely makes it easier, and it helps you stay focused, because usually the students, most students at public schools, they're kind of lost, they don't know the track they're on basically, and I feel like if there were enough resources to help those students out, it would be a big help, and hopefully one day we will have resources like that.
So relating to that, do you think that's mainly due to Islamic teaching, or rather that most Islamic households either they are a background of collective culture versus American, where it's mostly individualistic culture, or do you think it's because it's rooted in that religion?
Well, I feel like definitely the religion helps, and it kind of depends on how you raise this child. If you raise him, if you teach him about his deen at a young age, it makes it easier on you as a parent and as a child, because as you get older, you learn more and more, and that could really help out the child. Any more questions? Yes.
You guys did a great job. I just wanted to know, what would you guys choose references on Eric Erickson and Cole? I know there's a lot of literature out there, but what resonated with you guys to make you choose that?
Yeah, so those were two of the most popular examples. So we thought that it would be a good idea to kind of use those and to tell it to you guys.
Just an introduction to popular psychology.
Any more questions? Oh yeah. That's it. Well, thank you.
Thank you, group. We are a little ahead of time, so I know the judges have been sitting here the whole time and would like a break. We're going to gather back at 10:53. The presentation will begin at 10:55, the final one. So judges will get the scores for this last one. Everybody take a break until 10:53, and we'll gather back in here, inshallah.
She recorded it.
First time this group, they didn't have to do anything. Fine.
Yeah, I was sick. Like I got I didn't want to get up. Wait, did any of the students dress up as you? Did any of the students dress up as you? Or did you dress up as students?
No, I took it very soft.
Dress up as you? Did you dress up as a student?
I didn't know that. I always said, how do I say it? Forget the podium. Forget the podium. Can you say takbir when we finish? Yes, takbir! Allahu Akbar! I'll be back. Let's be careful now. We're done. Right. Right. Clarification on that. Inshallah, we'll see one day.
I'll be back eventually.
All the goodies over here. Diabetes
Thank you.
Graduation, on the graduation day, you'd be wearing your school your gown and your...
One of the students, he was sitting because he actually has a torn ligament.
No, that's for the teacher's room, sir.
What do you wear underneath your gown on the graduation?
And he is in a brace right now. As well, he took it off just for the presentation. I know he didn't want it to, but he was not being rude or disrespectful. He just needed to be honest. Thank you. He's worried.
Like there's no way you
He's worried.
wearing a button down and if he has to be like, let me just sit down. No, I think there's something else going on. I didn't want to judge, you know, like.
Now that your thesis is done, what are you going to be doing?
Are you eating
Oh my God! Look at someone's gonna get a seizure from that.
to one person will carry.
Oh, yeah.
Life says
Apologize for last time we were here and we were starting our exam and and I was like, this is over and you and Majira was talking and it was like, so just want to, I want to
No, you're totally good. We were talking about nothing important, don't worry.
but still, thank you so much. These little kids don't ask dumb questions. What is your population size? I know, exactly. There's too many spaces here. What are you doing, you guys here? But thank you so much.
Because they have these things.
They did it in less than 4 weeks. So, yeah, exactly. They're ready. We are proud of them. Yeah. We have some great writers and teachers. We taught them the right things. What's up?
You eat too much.
These are the new
Boys, put the mic down. You know, I'm old, so it takes me time to take pictures, okay? Like, these are geriatric pictures. Ah, you're here. I was looking for you. Lunch baby was doing a worksheet. Oh, so I'll give it to you.
I think it's does it count? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. I'm gonna start getting students in. Yeah. How are you teaching?
I haven't seen you taking.
Who?
I haven't seen you taking.
Oh, yeah, I had some from the teacher's room. Yeah. Thank you.
That's great. It was like, I mean, no, we're that's like, that's the goal.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. Is it bringing you good memories? 100%?
Graduation.
Yes, you can tell nervous. But thanks for supporting us.
Let's go home.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I know we're about a minute early, but we can get started and finish up. Our final group is Riham, Sumail, Raz, and Mustafa, and teacher Juwaria, and teacher Maysoon were their advisors, so I'll let them introduce the topic.
Welcome everyone. It was a pleasure to work with Mustafa, Ryan, Sumaya, and Riham. The topic was daunting, and Teacher Maysoon and I, we tried to guide our students into a certain direction, and they have their own perspectives as well as children who are being raised as well. Teacher Maysoon.
Thank you all for being here and giving us the time. Appreciate it. We can focus more about the gender and different to treat it in Islam very big and a focus on us. Hopefully you did a good job and we'll enjoy the presentation.
Thank you. Without further ado, thank you.
Is that one working?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sumaya Hassan. My name is Riham Mohammed.
My name is Rad Haq.
My name is Mohammed.
And today we're going to be focusing on raising boys and girls in modern society. These are a table of contents of what we're going to be focusing on today.
Alright, so I'm going to start off by talking about the sexual differences between boys and girls. And there's an ayah in the Quran, it's about the story of the birth of Maryam alayhi salam, right? And so the parents of Maryam alayhi salam, they wanted a boy. But when Maryam alayhi salam was born, and it said in the Quran, قال تعالى فلما وضعتها قالت رب إني وضعتها
بما وضعت والله أعلم بما وضعت وليس الذكر كالأنثى وإني سميتها مريم وإني أعيذها بك وذريتها من الشيطان الرجيم. And so, when Maryam a.s. was delivered, her mother said, "My Lord, I have given birth to a girl." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew what she delivered, and this was His plan. And the mother of Maryam a.s. said, and this is in the Quran, and the male is not like the female. And this is where we can see in the Quran that it established gender difference. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of His judgments is impartial, regardless of gender. And however, Islam acknowledges the biological distinctions between the man and the woman. And instead of negating these differences, Islam establishes gender roles promoting cooperation and highlighting the unique abilities of the man and the woman. Traditional Islamic gender roles uphold appreciation and value for each gender in a community. And according to An-Nawawi, Imam An-Nawawi, a prominent Islamic scholar, the gender divide starts when a kid reaches puberty or 15 lunar years.
And next we have this ayah from Surah Nur, and it states, قال تعالى وإذا بلغ الأطفال منكم الحلم فليستأذنوا كما استأذن الذين من قبلهم كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته والله عليم حكيم.
And when your children reach the age of puberty, let them seek permission to come in as their seniors do. This is how Allah makes His revelations clear to you, for Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. So this ayah really teaches parents to instill in their children the importance of seeking permission before entering someone's space. And this promotes a sense of mutual respect and consideration for others' boundaries.
So when we discuss gender differences and the roles that we place on mothers and fathers, and as well as how we raise our boys and our girls, it's important to understand the differences biologically and psychologically. For example, the hormonal differences between men and women should create a guideline for us on how we raise our children and also the roles that we place upon the mother and the father. For example, one of the main hormones that make men different from women is testosterone. During puberty, this hormone increases greatly and it increases energy, confidence, aggression, and competitive drive. It also has many physical differences, such as making men more muscular and also gives them higher bone density. So this hormone doesn't have as big as an effect on women. So what this means is that when we go and we set guidelines for raising our children, we should look at the hormonal differences and use this to guide us, and also we should take different approaches when we raise our boys and our girls. So according to Professor Stephen Volk, the question of whether men and women make fundamentally different decisions is very controversial, and it's also one of the most fundamental questions in psychological research. But according to the PNAS, men and women do make different choices and they do behave differently. So one of the main theories is that men are inclined to make more extreme choices. So they're more inclined to be more trusting or untrusting. And the reason for this is because the theory is that they have to deviate from norms, whereas women are more inclined toward the norm and don't have to deviate. So this goes into the Islamic perspective on this. When you look at the scientific evidence, you'll see that, and it ties into the Islamic role that mothers and fathers have similar rights to the different roles that complement each other. And so when parents have insecurity over their gender roles, it can stunt the development of their children. For example, if a father thinks that doing chores is unmanly or feminine, this insecurity will inevitably be passed on to his own children. So some practical parenting approaches that we can take when we raise our children is to encourage the boys to control their aggressiveness, because the Prophet ﷺ said, "The strong is not the one who overcomes people with strength, but the strong is the one who controls themselves during anger." So it shows that it's very important to teach our boys to control their emotions and to not be overly aggressive. And for the girls, it is encouraged for them to navigate their emotions in a healthy way.
Next, we're going to be going into what each child would need in order to succeed and their individual needs.
First, starting off with self-confidence in the girls. So this building self-confidence just empowers the girls to believe in their own voices, their own decision-making, voicing their opinions in a timely manner. Next is self-sufficiency. So this is just encouraging girls to teach them their own independence, resourcefulness, and enabling them to rely on their own skills and judgment to make their own informed decisions. Next, this also ties into decision-making skills, which is just developing strong decision-making skills for themselves. Next would be curiosity, and this is just enabling your girls to be able to take in the world around them, question everything that's going on, and to be able to voice their questions and take their education as seriously as boys. Body image ties into physical aspect and the individual needs for girls, which is just, there are crucial times for girls in which they're very conscious of their bodies, how they're perceived to others, and as well they should have a strong imitation in seeing how their parents act within themselves so that they can have a strong physical health, which ties into their mental health as well. Lastly, but definitely not least, is critical analysis, which is just teaching them to take in information and media messages from the world in a positive way and not believing everything that they see. Next, we're going to be going into the boys and exactly what they would need. Firstly is a positive role model, a male role model in their life, which is just providing the boys with guidance, and it helps them understand what it means to be respectful, responsible, and a compassionate man. Next would be physical affection. Now we notice a lot in our families from around the world or anything that men don't tend to show a lot of physical affection, which it's really important for them to understand how they should express love, care, and a lot of their emotions. Next would be verbal skills. So this just goes into how men should be able to voice their expressions rather than using aggressiveness or violence to express exactly what they're thinking. Next would be consideration for others. This just goes into showing physical affection as well as teaching them to have consideration for other people's feelings. Skills for peacemaking would be just to resolve conflicts in a non-violent way. And then going into responsibility and expression of emotion, teaching boys responsibility can help them take on challenges when they're in the world and to take ownership for their own actions. This is the Islamic view on gender imitations. The Islam opposes males acting as women and masculine women, and the Prophet ﷺ cursed those who imitate the opposite gender, as stated in this hadith.
عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنه قال: لعن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم المخنثين من الرجال والمترجلات من النساء وقال: أخرجوهم من بيوتكم. قال: فأخرج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فلانا وأخرج عمر فلانا.
Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the Prophet ﷺ cursed effeminate men, those men who assume the manners of women, and those women who assume the manners of men. And he said, turn them out of your houses. The Prophet ﷺ turned out such and such, and Umar turned out such and such. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ cursed the man who dressed like a man, cursed the man who dressed like a woman, and cursed the woman who dressed like a man. And this goes to show that this continued later on because Umar would do the exact same thing.
So next we're just going to be going into the status of parenting gender-wise. And so in Islam, there are obviously certain roles that were ascribed to men while others were ascribed to women. We often see mothers providing care, taking care of the household, taking care of the children, while fathers support the family, ensure their safety, and take care of finances. However, Islam does encourage both parents to do things like cooperate with one another, make shared decisions, and be actively involved in the child's life. And this just promotes a sense of unity between both parents. It ensures that they have a healthy relationship, and it also ensures they have healthy parenting techniques. And here we have a hadith that states, عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال ألا كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته والرجل راع على أهل بيته وهو مسؤول عن رعيته والمرأة راعية على أهل بيت زوجها وولده وهي مسؤولة عنهم على كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. Surely every one of you is a guardian and is responsible for his charges. A man is the guardian of his family and is responsible for his subjects. A woman is the guardian of her husband's home and of his children and is responsible for them. Surely every one of you is a guardian and responsible for their charges. So this hadith really just emphasizes that every one of us has a role of guardianship and accountability. You see a man over his family, a woman over the home and the children, and it just underscores that shared responsibility between both of them in maintaining and caring for their respective charges. And I'm really fond of that last sentence that states, every one of us is a guardian and responsible for our charges, because it just showcases how we all have things we need to do in life, things that we need to upkeep, but it also fosters a sense of duty towards the well-being of those entrusted to us.
So there are two key things that we often notice throughout motherhood. So the first thing is that the mother is the role model, because she spends the most time with the children growing up. So when the child is growing up and their father's at work, they're spending time with their mother, they're observing their mother. They're seeing what their mother is doing, her daily actions. And so when she's praying salah, when she's reading Quran, when she's doing other things, other tasks, they're observing that. And so their observation, that's going to lead to them establishing a deeper connection with Islam, establishing a deeper connection with their parents. And so one other thing is that they have to sacrifice a lot in motherhood. And so they have to sacrifice their job, they can sacrifice studies. And so this is why in Islam it is encouraged for us to be just grateful to our parents. And in the ayat Surah Al-Isra, it said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And the Lord has decreed that you worship not except Him, and to parents good treatment. And especially to our mothers, who have been with us our whole life, we have to be good to them. We have to treat them with kindness. We have to hug them. We have to kiss them. And that's the reason why it is said in that hadith, the paradise is beneath the feet of your mothers. Because they spend so much time making sure you are well fed, that when you're sick, that you're getting better. And so we just have to make sure that we have to make them feel that they know that they're loved. We have to make sure they know that, just tell them, I love you. And so this is because they spend so much time just sacrificing so many things, and we always are grateful for that. That's life.
So the standard gender roles of fathers. In Surah Baqarah, ayah 233, it says, قال تعالى وعلى المولود له رزقهن وكسوتهن بالمعروف. But the fathers of the child shall bear the cost of the mother's food and clothing on a reasonable basis. And so what this means is that the head of the household, or the kiwama, has many obligations. And so the main one of these obligations is to provide for his children and also for the mother of the children. And so he also has to be the mediator during conflicts. He has to be calm and also reserved and be impartial. He also has to comfort others during stressful situations, since he is the head of the household. And he also has to prioritize the needs of others over himself, such as his children's needs and also the needs of his wife. So there's a common myth that men should not engage in housework, and this is rooted in traditional gender roles. But there's nothing in Islam that actually says this, because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself used to engage in housework.
Here's Sahih Hadith. سألت عائشة ما كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يصنع في بيته. قالت كان يكون في مهنة أهله دعني خدمة أهله فإذا حضرت الصلاة خرج إلى الصلاة. رواه البخاري.
So Sayyidina Aisha, may Allah Most High be pleased with her, was asked, what did the Prophet used to do in his house? She said, he was in the service of his family, and when the time for prayer arrived, he went to the prayer. So what this means is that when the Prophet ﷺ had time to help out in the house, he did. And a few things that he actually did were he used to sweep the house, repair old clothing, and also do the shopping before he had to go and do his other obligations.
So next we're going to be discussing a common stereotype that we see about women. And so according to a survey by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, women are highly likely to take on tasks such as meal prep at around 80%. And so as seen from the statistic, this stereotype is true. However, the problem is that people often think that this originates from religious teachings. Yet the truth is these roles have been set in society for countless years, and it is rooted in traditional gender roles as it is what commonly works for most families. But even so, as Mustafa previously mentioned, there should always be a balance when dividing tasks in a household. And the man should always do his part to help around when he is able to, especially because there are times where a woman is unable to take on hefty tasks, and she'll need that help. So just ensuring that everyone is there to assist around when it is needed.
Next, we're going to be going into the cultural stereotypes that we see. And beginning with this ayah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
Cultural stereotypes. So basically children are educated into certain gender roles from an early age, such as, for example, it could be like seeing their parents and like, for example, toys and things. They tend to like separate into their own gender roles. Next would be that gender stereotypes are often maintain the power dynamics in the household and the inequalities between men and women. That's just a stereotype because it kind of serves to show that at an early age, like for example, a girl may not think that she could do enough as much as her brother, for example, but that's just a stereotype and it should be debunked. And so there are stereotypes that represent women as inferior and men as superior, and this can also be used as an excuse for like unequal opportunities in education, jobs, and just the outside world. But Islam places a strong emphasis on fairness and equality for every person, and this is backed up on this ayah.
فاستجاب لهم ربهم أني لا أضيع عمل عامل منكم من ذكر أو أنثى بعضكم من بعض.
Cultural stereotypes can also lead to like children experiencing prejudice, discrimination, and just the lots in their everyday life. There have been like the differences between a private school education and an Islamic school versus the public school education, and not being exposed to as much Islam or the exact like right teachings in upbringing a child.
And then next, we just want to briefly talk about how we should approach caring for orphans. I know we talked about how parents should raise their children, but what about in the cases where a child does not have a parent or a parental role in their life? And here we have an ayah from Surah Kahf that says, وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ وَكَانَ تَحْتُهُ كَنْزًا لَهُمَا. And as for the wall, it belonged to two orphan boys in the city, and under the wall was a treasure that belonged to them. And so, just going back to caring for orphans, according to the study by the Children and Youth Services Review, orphans are highly susceptible to things like drug abuse, unemployment, homelessness, and crime. And so this study just serves as one of the reasons as to why caring for orphans is something so greatly highlighted and stressed throughout Islam. And so, the fact that this ayah exists just proves as an even greater emphasis on this matter. I also want to mention that there are a lot of rewards out there for people who care for orphans. And did you know that it is one of the great 8 duties of a sincere believer? Lastly, I want to mention that as an ummah, we should always support orphans as there is so much barakah, great blessings in doing so. And you can do this by, paying zakah or sadaqah, or even just providing educational opportunities to further their knowledge. Lastly, I just want to state that we should always ensure that we are doing our role in helping the needy, and it should be something we should always strive for.
Next, we're going to go over our survey discussion. So we sent out 2 different surveys. One was directed at parents and one was directed at the children, so we can get the views of both sides. First, we're going to start with the parents. And so the first question we asked was, do you raise your boys and girls differently? And so 61% said no, and this just shows that a lot of parents actually, I guess, raise their children on an equal fabric and don't differentiate between them. And another slide is how often do you communicate with your children, and this one was a little bit surprising because some people said that they didn't always communicate with their children, and so this can have some negative consequences when you don't have communication between parent and child.
The next question we asked was, does culture have anything to do with how you raise your children? And we had a pretty large sum state yes, at around 88%. And so this is probably because we just had a very diverse group of people who responded to this survey. So I'm sure that's why a large portion of them stated that culture does have something to do with how they raise their children. And then next we asked if parents enforce different responsibilities upon their girls and boys. And around 61% said yes. As we stated earlier in our slides, there should be different roles that we should enforce upon our girls and boys. But also a large portion stated that they don't. And I'm sure this is just because some households want to promote a sense of equality among their children.
Next we asked, do you involve religious teachings in your parenting skills? And a lot of parents said yes, and I understand this part because a lot of parents will involve attending the masjid, going to halaqas, or just in the household listening to Quran constantly, or just using certain instances from the Prophet's time to back up a reason as to why they're saying no to a certain thing or yes in their parenting skills. And then next we asked, do you raise your children the same way your parents raised you? This was an important question to see exactly how the parents would respond to this, and a lot of them said no. There are multiple instances from the Prophet where he has said that do not raise your children how you were raised because they are for a different time.
Right, so in our survey that children were sent out, it's important to know that most of the respondents were from 13 to 18 years old, and they were majority, so let's just let that be known. And so our first question was, do your parents follow stereotypes in their parenting? And so from their perspective, what they see is most kids say, yes, they do follow stereotypes in their parenting. Lots of the common stereotypes about parenting, that they see their parents using those models, I guess. And so our next question we asked was, do your parents involve Islamic principles in their parenting? Islamic principles like teaching the Quran, reading hadith, putting salat together. And so most of them, alhamdulillah, said yes, so that's good. And a few were unsure about that, but it's just good to know that most of them said yes.
So the next question we asked was, how often do you communicate with your parents? And so this was a very wide range. You had multiple most people said that they always communicate with their parents, which is very good. But there's also people, 7.4%, who said that they never communicate with their parents, and so this is a problem. And there's also some that say often and also sometimes. So it just shows that there's a disconnect between how much people communicate with their parents. And the next thing we said, we asked the children if they will be raising their kids the same way their parents raised them. And a majority of them actually said no. So it's the same thing from what the parents said and what the children said. So it shows that there is a connection, that both of them will not raise their children the same way.
So we also asked, do you think your parents favor culture over religion? Because lots of us, we come from immigrant families, and so they come from a place where they raise their children a different way. And so by asking this, we're seeing if people if their parents would use their cultural traditions to raise them. But most people said no, religion was favored over culture, which is a positive indication of Islamic principles being involved in parenting. All right, so I just want to conclude by just saying that we discussed the clear and distinct roles that were set for the mother and the father. So the mother, she provides a caring role. She raises the children. She helps. Like we saw the hadith, the flock. She's responsible for her husband's house, and we can see that the father is the qawwam, and that's one of his roles. which is a protector. You can see like he just maintains, I guess. And so, here's a quote by Ali ibn Abi Talib of the line. He said, "Do not raise your children the way your parents raised you. They were born for a different time." And you can see in the questions we ask, do your parents raise you the same, or will you raise your children the same way your parents raised you, or do you raise your children the same way your parents raised you? You can see that this is something that was mentioned, that raise them for a different time. And so lastly, here are resources. Alright, so I'd just like to give some acknowledgments to our advisors, Teacher Maysoon and Hassan, and Teacher Juwaria, and lastly, Muslim Educational Trust for giving us the opportunity to present this to, end of our high school journey. We can present this to you guys and just have a end off with a bang. Alright, thank you. Any questions?
10 minutes of questions from the judges, and then we'll conclude.
So great presentation, guys. Wow, this is loud. Hold it away from me. Let's see. I had a question about, well, I had a few questions. I was kind of surprised by the survey results, and I was wondering if you guys found, were you guys surprised or anything interesting that you thought it wouldn't be that way, but it was? Like one of the things that I was surprised by was that parents don't want to raise their kids the way they were raised, or the following up survey. So what were your thoughts on it?
For the like how we concluded the hadith with, how we shouldn't be raising our children the same way that our parents raised us. And so I think it's really important that we establish that and understand that, because we, like, as children, we all live in different times. Like, from now, like, 2024, it's a lot different from times like 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. So just ensuring that you are raising them to, like, the standards that we have now, just everything that exists, because there's just so much that goes into that. And I feel like we need to understand that our children aren't existing in a time where things are the same. It's a changing world. Things change and stuff happens. So just ensuring that we kind of raise them for the time that they're existing in is very important and critical.
I can also answer that. So my dad told me a few stories about his childhood, and so one of the stories told me about like him being raised with his parents. Like they didn't have him work on the farm. So he lived in a rural village in Bangladesh, and so they had just had a few animals. And he'd be working in the field, like the rice. And so his parents just like make sure he's like working. They wouldn't really, just be like always there. And so I heard that his dad would be like my grandpa. He would be like, they'd be in the village. He'd be helping as like the village doctor, I guess. But like in my time, like my dad didn't raise me that way. Like just send me out, just go do some work. Instead, he'd be like there helping me. He'd be more involved, I guess. And it's like just the difference is like you can see like he'd be out there just by himself. There wouldn't be that much supervision. But they'd give me more supervision than he said he would got. So there's a difference there. And so I guess in my children's time, though, inshallah, like it's gonna be a way different time. Technology's evolving at a rapid pace, and so we have to account for that. That like when they're like 2 or 3 years old, they're gonna be so like attuned to technology that at that age we weren't. So we just have to understand that there's gonna be different times, different technologies, different. There's a lot of different perspectives to take into account. So we just have to understand that.
And just one final point. When we say that don't raise your children the same way you were raised, that doesn't mean give them teach them different principles or change the principles at all. Instead, what we're trying to say is maybe the methods of teaching your children should change, but the principles should stay the same.
Okay, great answers. Just to kind of follow up on that, as girls, boys, or youth of this community and modern society, where do you guys feel most supported? And in which areas do you feel more support could be offered? So I'm thinking of like home life, school, among friends, jobs, wherever else would you guys feel most supported?
definitely feel more supported when I'm around like my community in my area. It's very much different than here. I feel like I can relate to the people around me more so because they've grown up like me. They've most likely gone through the same things that I have. Versus like I feel like there could be more of a support system in like school systems, whereas there aren't like really. Everyone's different, so I feel like you can't really relate to them on like a different level and like what they've gone through, and your parenting like skills from like your mom and dad is way different than like between the two of us. Like there's way different, like we've gone through two different things, two different lives. So I feel like there could be more of a support system in like our schools.
And I'll also like to kind of add on to that. Just personally, coming, like I've been to 3 different high schools and this was my 3rd high school. And so I just came like the last year and it was just a very hard time because I hadn't gone to like any Islamic school throughout my high school years. And so coming here, I was kind of like stressed and I wasn't really expecting much, but you know, the faculty and the students, they did such a great job of supporting me and providing me with the skills necessary in order for me to succeed. And so just having a very, very stable support from like school and just all of that is very important because it can really, like, I mean, now we're like, I'm graduating and I don't know, it's just like, it wasn't very something that I looked forward to when I was younger, but now I can confidently say that I've been supported in the best way possible. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So I just wanted to ask, like, how do Islamic values that you guys are talking about compare to like principles of Western feminism, and like how do they compare to other major religions like Christianity and things like that? Like the similarities and differences.
I don't know, like restate your question and simplify it a bit.
Yeah, just like how does the Islamic values and like gender roles that you guys are talking about, like how does it compare to Western feminism and like the ideologies that they have there and like other major religions? Just like the similarities and differences and like what you guys see in their system.
See, as we began, we talked about like the gender roles and how there are Islamic roles that we have, and we shouldn't really like follow exactly what the times are, rather sticking with the Sunnah and the Quran.
Oh yeah, so like I guess when we talk about Western feminism, I guess Western feminism has a big, one of the big points about it is that like it's completely, like the gender role should be completely like abolished and that men and women should, you know, that men can do without women and women can do without men. But the difference in Islam is that Islam views them as complementary. So instead of trying to divide them and to, you know, give each one individual things, it combines them and gives them complementary roles to give a greater family community.
Good job. Did I answer your question? Okay. Are there judges' questions or audience questions?
Okay. That's a really good segue for my question. So thank you for whoever asked. So back to like the norms and deviation between the two genders. Why do you guys think that mainly, where does it mainly root? Do you guys think that, well, specifically in how girls are raised, do you think that's mainly due to biology, or is it mainly, or to like for example, how women's growing into motherhood, is that mainly due to biology, or is it the way that girls are socialized in girlhood?
I feel like it's not mainly on biology. I mean, there are factors in our genes, but I think it's more so on the environment that we're in, especially the example that you use, you know, girls going into motherhood. When you see a family and you see the healthy environment that they're in, their success, the way that like a father is doing his job, a mother is doing his job, and the kids are turning out well, that girl who's seeing that family would more so incline towards that, and that love and order to like care for someone or to love and you know like raise their own children. I feel like I've seen a lot of that in today's like time, and how like I feel like girls tend to want to, they have a lot of care and love, and mothers do as well, and that just tends to create like a healthy environment for children. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Thank you. I think my perspective on this is that the way girls are socialized kind of alienates boys and gives them the perspective that because the mom/woman will take care of the nurturing, you kind of have the passive not. So how can our communities help bridge that gap and help the men take a more encouraging, active role within the nurturing, especially when rearing children?
Somebody repeats that. I can repeat that quickly.
So, both culturally and kind of socially, girls are socialized to be more nurturing. So because women often take on those roles, both Islamically and kind of even within Western gender roles, do you think that alienates men from taking on similar roles and being more nurturing, specifically when in relating to child rearing and taking care of children, and those roles that are taken in the home? And also, how can we, like as communities, further encourage boys and men to have a more active role with nurturing and being more affectionate? So we just want to mention, like in the slides, we did talk about how mothers are often seen nurturing and caring for the child while the fathers are, at work or doing other things like that. However, that doesn't completely eliminate the father from being involved in the child's life, especially from an early age. That's just the traditional gender norms that are rooted in society. However, in any family, it's really just up to them on how they want to approach the idea of raising their kids. What works out for them is, it's up to their decision. However, it's just what works out for the family. There are situations where, like, you could divide the tasks between the woman, caring for the child, but the father can also be a part of that role. So, not exactly like, it's not really just the father kind of being eliminated from the idea of like being involved in his child life, but it's like a task that can be put on both parents. It just depends on the household. So what do you guys think is the responsibility then on educational institutions to help instill those ideologies in students going into adulthood, going into parenthood?
I think based on my education experience here at MET, we have we have an Islamic studies class, and I feel like in that class we talk more so on how both of us, both men and women, are equal in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we do have different responsibilities and they should be instilled more so in other curriculums. But in our Islamic studies class we have multiple stories, Quranic ayahs, hadiths, talking about how we should have those responsibilities.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Very well done. I'd just like to throw a question. As we look at the strengths of our community, what would be your response if we overnight received 100 or more orphans from the variety of conflicts that are around the world? How would our community respond?
Yeah, I could definitely answer that question. So just going back into, as the Ummah, the Muslim Ummah, we should always strive to support the needy and do what we can to offer our help. And so like just even how, as I discussed earlier, like paying zakat, paying sadaqah, that's a huge part. Even if it's just 1 cent, the smallest action is always beneficial. But obviously like just if you are able to, just being there for the child, to being able to care for them. But if you are not able to, just offering your support, even like knowledge, like educational opportunities, all of that is very beneficial to a child. So being there for them
within any way is always critical and very important.
I feel like here, if we received that call or if we had 100 orphans, I feel like at MET we could take them all in. We'd have the resources. Yeah, we'd have the resources, I hope so, in order to feed them, clothe them, and also give them that emotional support that they need because they'd be going through a really big change in their lives.
So I think that's not only MET, but the whole Muslim community in Portland in general, definitely receive them and like support them, because there's a lot of groups out there. There's many like Rohingya refugee support groups. There's other refugee support groups, and there's Islamic Social Services of Oregon, I think, and so they help people. They just give them the help they need to like just get set up, and like the orphans, when they come in, and if there's like 100 like overnight, they'd be like everything that'd be a problem, right? But we have thousands of Muslims here who would definitely be supporting them, would take them in, just foster them, make sure they're well fed, make sure they have all their needs are supported. So I think that over here wouldn't be a problem to be like this community is so open and welcome, and so just important to see that we have that like quality of community.
Any more questions? Thank you. This was our final group. This group thrilled more than the other group. So the judges will tally up the final scores, and then before we leave, we're going to hear from each one of the judges about some lasting parting advice for the students and overall comments about what they've heard and what they've seen. So that'll be about 4 or 5 minutes. Just please stay seated.
Or can the students come back at like around 12 o'clock?
I think it's best we just stay right here and
Stay
finish
right
it. Because hurting them is like hurting.
Yeah, just stay here. Don't go anywhere.
What we're gonna think about.
We don't practice all that. First run.
It might be good. That's why it's 16.
How many?
So many people. Yeah, someone.
Correct, exactly. One more pack, 4 and then. See, that's why it wasn't. Everyone likes Overall, I was thinking, like, what really kind of but like, are they just like trying to teach us how to raise children? Because I feel like most people here already raise children. Like, obviously, people who are like, what are they trying to teach us how to do that? Or like, that's more of like telling you how to also like more so pull from other recipes.
Judges, are we ready, or should we take a couple more minutes? 1 minute.
Final speech to the seniors. He wants to move on to
Dude, you must express the gratitude to them.
just do this. No, as soon as it just grab the mic.
Stop answering me. It's like a slap.
I know you move like I know like they're busy with their own things. How much time do you guys have
Judges, okay, ready? All right. One of the traditions that we've had for the senior thesis is that the judges impart some lasting knowledge and wisdom and some comments about the presentations that they've heard. Obviously, when you have judges from outside who haven't been intimately involved in the process of reading the presentations, they have a different perspective, and we've always enjoyed the commentary. So I'm going to start, and we're going to,
Should we have seniors up front?
instead of sitting?
Yeah.
All right.
Some of us are
Sit- sit.
And judges can turn around?
Oh, you get to move. Okay. Seniors. Seniors! Yeah.
Hey guys, you gotta listen.
Okay guys, I think you did really great, mashallah. I would just recommend maybe narrow your focus down in the future if you do a topic like this, where you can specify a certain field or a certain, draw it out more. Don't give surface analysis of base type of common sense things. I think a more specific approach would help, and more science-based supporting your points of Islam and the benefits of Islam would be nice. But I think in general you guys did great, and I wish you all the best, and I'm sure you're all going to be amazing adults, successful, and I hope all the best for you, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Just again, mashallah, what an amazing thesis statement you guys all did, and I'm just wishing you all the best. It's a huge accomplishment. You guys are all seniors and moving on to do amazing things, inshallah. And so I just really enjoyed sitting here and listening, and I just wish you all the best. And thanks for great presentations.
Everyone. I'm really impressed with everybody, honestly. I'm really impressed with the level of topic that's been given. So I can't really understand how broad of a topic it was, and especially for given your age, hopefully that nobody's a parent yet, that it's really kind of topics a bit out of your scope. So I really understand that it could have been very difficult. So there was a lot of understanding coming from me personally on that end. I really don't have a lot of feedback given all the presentations. I really think you guys did a really good job, mainly because I recognize a few of you from the speeches, and I really see a lot of the improvement. So good job on that. What I really want to focus on is the papers. So just as a tip, make time to read your papers out loud. There were little grammatical mistakes that really took away from the focus of what you were trying to convey that could have been caught had more attention been paid to the writing and also the structure of the writing itself. So a little more focus on there would have really helped strengthen your argument. And also, it was really easy to tell when the writing switched from one student to the other. So I really encourage that if you were to take part in another group writing, to really have a strong editor that will catch those kind of the gaps, and also like improve the flow of the discussion. So again, it doesn't take the focus away from the reader. Other than that, you guys did a really good job and did a really good job answering questions. So thank you guys for your effort, and congratulations on graduating.
First off, mashallah, you guys all did such a great job. It was a pleasure just sitting here listening to all the speeches, the presentations, and I can really see how hard all of you guys worked on it. I don't really have any really big criticism or anything to give you guys, because I thought it was amazing. I'm always impressed when I come in and I forget that you guys are so young. You guys are seniors, because you're so well spoken, and you guys are very, you can just see in your mannerisms how respectful and how educated you guys are, and you guys must have really good mentors. So good job, kudos to that. The only thing I guess I could maybe pinpoint a little bit is I really enjoyed seeing the topics in the context of the from an Islamic view. I would appreciate a little bit more insight in possibly maybe like a little bit more non-Islamic view, and maybe touching base on like socioeconomic statuses, different backgrounds, different cultures, and also just age as well, of like parenting age. And again, I know this is kind of, it's hard because you guys aren't parents yet, you guys are young. So it's interesting to see that you guys spent time looking into that. So that's the only thing I can maybe think of as a parent myself. Other than that, congratulations, seniors, and I hope you guys, inshallah, you guys have a best of luck in your future endeavors. So congratulations.
I agree with literally what everyone else has been saying. Just like last year, I really commend you on getting 20-ish pages in on a topic that's so unrelatable to your lives. Like as a 29-year-old with no children, I only have a vague interest in parenthood. And just the fact that you were able to do this much, being 17 to 18-year-olds, is pretty great. As far as advice for college, I would say take full advantage of your college libraries and librarians. Speak to the librarians there. They are subject matter experts in different fields. So like there are different librarians for each like type of genre and like stack and like field. So you could find like librarians who specialize in sociology and like talk to them when you're working on research papers and with citations and things like that. And then writing labs in the colleges too. So especially the first year, like writing labs saved me a lot of the time. So just take full advantage of every resource you can find. It's an overwhelming time, and what will get you through it is finding all of those people who can help you.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah for your effort. I was very impressed. Praise be to Allah. And what I would like to say to you is to preserve the work that you put into these presentations. Preserve it. Apply a strategy to it that can continue to deliver this very important information over and over and over again to those coming behind you. You used all of the tools. I saw the Arabic, the grammar, the strategies in presenting the information, and the Islamic sciences. I saw with the hadiths and all the other supporting materials, and I wasn't expecting to see all of that, but it was an amazing experience, and I would say that you are light upon light. And my last comment comes from a 5-year-old in my Head Start class. He told me, he said, never back down and never give up. He's talking to me. So that I want to say that to you from him, that even where he is, he doesn't have possibly all of the, but he knows right from wrong.
All right, thank you so much, judges. Thank you, seniors, for the wonderful presentations. And thank you for the audience who have listened to it. And I hope you are prepared for next year, some of you, when you'll be doing it next year. I think we are finished. Teacher Vera, maybe we can get a group picture with the advisors, the judges, and the seniors.
Maybe judges don't have to move. The seniors around and everyone around the judges as they sit.
There's a former thesis presented. Grab me from class really quickly.
Yes, sir. Can you help teacher Mahal?
I don't have that in my.
Everybody say MT.
Get down, bro.
Hey guys. Say 3 more days. 3 more days.
8 more days.
Long enough past 2024. Could be. Oh my God.
3 more days. 8 days. That would be that one.
Graduating. Hey, stop counting Friday.
We're not waiting? No, we're still.
We got it.
Teacher Muhammad is here. Thank you so much.
You were amazing.
Lunch time for the judges.
Hey girl. Please send that down.
You see left. Deletes level of 18.